Hello, I'm Feedback Gaming, and this is a mini tutorial for DaVinci Resolve and setting up keybinds as well as importing XMLs. And I thought I'd just clear up the confusion by showing you in a little mini video. So one thing that's a struggle with DaVinci Resolve is the few issues you run into with XMLs. With Adobe Premiere, it does most of the back-end stuff for you, but you have to do a little bit more fiddly stuff when it comes to DaVinci Resolve. So here's a little project I've got here. I've got the raw file here, almost 4 gigs, and the XML broken down for the timeline to make it easier to edit down. So import the actual video file directly into the media pool. Boom, it's in there. And then next you want to import the XML. So I'm just going to grab the URL for this. It's on the desktop on a folder. Go into File, and we're going to import the timeline. Import AAF, EDL, and XML. Pop in there. There we go. This is the XML file and import. You'll be prompted with a pop-up right now. Make sure you don't automatically import source clips. This seems to cause a lot of problems. And the simpler the XML is, aka just one file to import, one actual MP4, tends to make things a lot easier. So take that away and let it generate it automatically for you. Go. It's going to render all the timelines out and import them in, and it has to render all the waveforms as well. All right, here we go. Most of the waveforms have rendered, so we have an idea of what we're working with now. And as you can see in this case, there's 2 audio tracks. We've got my voice and also the game sounds. My voice is on the bottom and the game sounds on the top. And this is the file that you'll generally work with. And that's how you import an XML into DaVinci Resolve. Next up, setting up the keybinds. So the keybinds you come with the DaVinci Resolve, in my honest opinion, are absolute trash. You go into DaVinci Resolve, top left, and go into keyboard customization. The defaults here are honestly trash. So let me show you the keybinds that I use to get the maximum efficiency out of editing. Remember, so first of all, I've got Q and W. So we've got start to playhead and end to playhead. What's so confusing is in Adobe Premiere, it's called something different, but just trust me, this is what it's set as in DaVinci. And what it basically does is if I set the timeline right here and hit Q, it's going to delete everything back to the playhead and ripple it back. So I hit Q and boom, it's deleted all that out. And then W is deleted everything away from the playhead to the track, and then also ripples it in. This is really useful, for instance, if you're editing at lightning speed. I'm holding middle mouse to drag over here, pop it here, and then you do W, snip that part out. And you're probably thinking, oh my goodness, I just do it the old-fashioned way. I just do, let's say, I move it here, I do a cut, then I do a delete, then I drag it all back in. Yeah, you can do that, but remember, you're pressing 3 or 4 different keystrokes to get to that certain point, and that's not really good time efficiency for you. You want to try and minimize the amount of buttons you can press in one succession to try and maximize the efficiency of editing down a project. So just to clarify, Q, start to playhead, W, end to playhead. Personally, I think these namings are awful. Okay, by default, L is set up as play forward, so fast forward, so you can play it at ×2 speed. I moved that to A, so it's just more accessible with your left hand as you're hovering over the Q, W, E, R keys, as if you're playing an FPS. So play forward it's called. So you play it now, and I press A. So once again, time efficiency is important. When you're playing back large sections, you want to be as time efficient as you possibly can, and having A to play back at ×2 is very useful. Back to keyboard customization. Okay, we've got Z and X. So by default, X is set to backspace, which is horrendously far away on the keyboard. You've got to move your hand all the way across the keyboard. X basically means if a track is selected and you press X, it will delete it, but it also will ripple it back to the playhead so there's no gaps. So you've got boom, press X, it's deleted and rippled back. And for instance, this gap here, if you click it, you can do the same here by X and rippling it all the way back. Once again, the old-fashioned way will be to cut, and then you could just do a flashy delete, but then you've got to ripple it all the way back. And once again, there's just too many clicks there. You want to try and maximize your efficiency. In this case, keyboard customization, X, ripple, delete. So the old-fashioned way of making cuts, as you've probably seen just before, is use the razor tool to make slices, but then you have to click the tool, you have to click on the playhead, you have to click on the tool, you have to click on the timeline, and you have to make cuts, and then it's really time consuming. So for instance, give you an example. So if you move the playhead to right here, press Z, it makes the chop there, and then I select this, X, delete. So this is really efficient. You'll find different instances where you need to do this. So let's say, for instance, you play back this clip as a video. No, wait, that shouldn't be in the video. So in that case, that won't be a ripple. Rippling this is pointless because I can't get rid of the whole thing. So you select it all and you press X, ripple, delete. And that's the most efficient way of doing that. Two other changes I would recommend as well. Hop into your keyboard shortcuts. And Y is set to select clips forward of track. This is really useful to make gaps and not make a nightmare of overriding your previous work, particularly if you're watching them back again from the beginning to end. So Y is default select clips forward onto track. Now I've just changed that to V, just once again for convenience, just to get to it on my keyboard. And if you click here and then press V, it selects everything after the playhead. So let's just say I want to interject some kind of like break sequence or a shout out. I can now move everything across. Boom, move it across. You get the example. And of course it goes without saying, Control Z is undo. Next up is up and down arrows. By default, DaVinci will set these to clip edit for previous, for up arrow. So up is previous, confusing I know. And down is set to clip edit next. What this does is it just moves the marker to the beginning and end of clips. So I'll do up arrow now to the beginning, down arrow to the end. You can constantly up, down, 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 down. And for instance, if you are editing something, you could go here, then you do W to ripple delete, then you want to play it back in here if it sounds good. So up arrow, boom, it's deleted all that out, and then play it, and there you go. The next thing I'd recommend you setting up, something you'll probably rarely use, is delete selected, and that is set on specific delete. Now for efficiency reasons, you might want to set that to maybe like R, for instance. That might just be easy to access with your left hand. And what that just does is a straight up delete, but leaves a gap. If you are doing a more complex edit and you don't want to ripple things because you might find it more destructive, you might find it more easier just to delete certain segments and then shuffle them back yourself as you move them along. Few other useful keybinds. Middle mouse is a good way of scrolling. Just move back and forth. Hold down the middle mouse and just move it back and forth. Middle mouse most of the time is your scroll wheel. Using the scroll wheel and holding down Alt will zoom in and out. So it's a really quick way. So for instance, you want to hop onto this segment here and then you scroll in because you want to get nice and deep. There you go. So mouse wheel all the way back. I want to look at this segment here, and then your Alt and then zoom all the way back in. It's just really a quick way of jumping onto certain bits on the timeline. Hey, was this useful? Are you editing more efficiently right now? Be aware there will be kind of a period where you'll really struggle to get used to these new keybinds. But trust me, having everything on your left hand, being able to press certain buttons at your fingertips and just make cuts and edits really quickly will save you hours of your time editing videos. So I'd highly, highly recommend that. Anyway, have a good one, guys. Bye-bye.